Hey guys, welcome back. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Jason and you're watching Old Car Auto Guy. Nah, just kidding, this is Chuck from Budget Panther Fan. Okay, so this video is going to be the first part of a three-part series on how I upgraded the sound system in my 2010 Grand Marquis. The first part, I'm going to talk about this stereo here. It's the Sony XAV-AX1000 CarPlay head unit. The second part, I'm going to talk about this subwoofer amplifier. And the third part, I'm going to talk about this backup camera. Okay, so the first part is this stereo. I got it from Crutchfield back in December of 2018, and it's now July 19, so I've had it for a good 6 months, using it every day. And so this is not going to be an unboxing or a first look. This is going to be a full review on living with it every single day and using it for the past 6 months. So first thing is the price. I got it for $280 from Crutchfield, and I bought it from them for two reasons. They got no tax because it's out of state, and they also include some goodies. They gave me this Ford double din multi-dash kit for free, no charge. These are like, $10. They also threw in a wiring harness. These are also $10. And they even threw in the factory removal keys, and these are like $5, but I think we all know how to use a coat hanger to get that thing out. One thing I did spend $5 on that I want to talk about real quick are these Posi-Lock connectors. They're made by Posi-Products, and in the past I've used electrical tape or butt connectors or soldering to get these wires together. I wanted to try something new. So they came with these little connectors. They come with about 16 or 18 of them. I had enough to do the stereo, and I had 3 or 4 extras. So how they work is, pretend this is 2 wires. You'll strip it back, strip the shielding back, and you get your wires on here and you'll twist them together here. They don't need to be perfectly tight, just together. And you'll take the first part of this. You can see that it's hollow. You'll stick it on here, get it on there nice and tight. And the next part of this is there's a pin that in the center of that, and you'll stick this in there. And when you get it in there, you'll start to tighten it down, and you'll crank it down as tight as you can get it. And it's going to smush all 3 of these parts together. And as you can see, this thing ain't going nowhere. That's a good solid connection. It's shielded. There's going to be no short to ground or short to hot or anything like that. And the reason why I wanted to try these is because I wasn't sure if this stereo was going to work out or not, and I'd have to remove it and return it. And these connectors are completely reversible. All you do is you unscrew them, take it off, bing bang boom, you're done. You've got, if this was soldered, you'd have to cut it out. If you had a butt connector, you'd have to cut it out. And if it was electrical tape, you'd have that sticky electrical tape residue. Okay, enough about that. So let's get into this review. I've got my my notes here to keep me on track. Let's get in the car. Okay, so as you can see, I've got it right there mounted in the dash. I've got my phone here, and the first thing I want to talk about was the installation of this. The installation was kind of a pain in the butt because I had to modify the dash of the car here. I had to get a Dremel and trim away a little piece of that. It's not really the fault of the head unit, it's a fault of the car. Signal wires, I wanted to touch on that a bit. Because I was running RCA cables or patch cables to an amplifier, you got to remember to run those wires separate from your power wire to your amplifier, or any wires carrying high current or high voltage. So what I did is I ran the power wire on the right side of here in this little channel well underneath the carpet all the way to the back, and then I ran the RCA signal wires down the center of this transmission tunnel back to the amplifier. And I also ran the backup camera wires on this underneath this channel on the left side, because that's got a small power wire coming from the reverse light bulb and then a signal wire for the camera. So to do that, I just to make it easier on myself, I removed everything out of the car. I removed both front seats, the rear seat bottom, and the carpet, and some trim panel pieces on the sides. And you really need to do that to get good access, to get these wires hidden away, because if you don't, you're going to have some exposed wiring, exposed wires, and it's just not going to look very good. Okay, does this head unit work? Does it do everything on the box that it says it's going to do? The short answer is yes. Everything it says it does, and it does it well. Have I had any problems with this? I've had one problem in 6 months where it crashed, and the only way I could get it back going again was to shut off my phone and restart it and turn off the power, or shut off the car, cut power to the head unit, and turn it back on. I still don't know what caused it. It may have been my phone, it may have been the stereo, it's still unknown, but one glitch in 6 months, I think that's an acceptable occurrence. Okay, now let's get into the highs. The highs on this thing is the CarPlay iPhone system integration. It works really well with phone calls. It works really well with the GPS, whether it's using Apple Maps, Google Maps, Waze, whatever you want. The system integration is excellent. It's got Bluetooth. I don't really use it because I use my lightning cable to charge the phone and link it. Bluetooth works good. Another thing I like about this stereo is it has a volume knob instead of buttons, because when you need to turn it down, it's just easier to turn that volume knob. The touch screen on this thing is pretty darn accurate. I've never had a mistouch where I'm touching something and I accidentally trigger something else, so the touch screen is accurate. Another good thing about this is it has a front mounted USB. Some of these models have it on the back, and then you've got to run a separate cable on the back of the stereo and then run it out the front, which can be a pain in the butt for somebody. It also has the auxiliary input on the front. If you just have a guest in the car and they've got an iPod or something. Another good thing about this stereo is the amplifier is CEA rated for 20 watt RMS times 4. And what that means is, it's a very powerful amp. Back in the day, you'd get a stereo and it'd say on the box, 50 watts times 4 peak, but when you get it in there, it sounds like junk, because it's really only putting out, 5 or 7 or 10 RMS watts to your door speakers. This has got 20 RMS, and it's pretty powerful. It also has high and low pass crossovers built in, which is very important for me because I still haven't upgraded the door speakers or the speakers in the parcel shelf. I'm using the Ford factory speakers, and that's possible because the crossover in this is so good. I can completely eliminate all the bass signals coming out of the stereo and shut them off, so no bass is going to my highs and my door speakers. And it also has a 10-band equalizer, so you can fine-tune. The stock stereo just has 2, bass and treble. This has a 10-band, so you can really get in there and fine-tune how you want your music to sound. It's got a subwoofer control, so you can control the volume of the subwoofer independently of the volume, which is nice. It's got a really good hands-free external microphone, so when you're making phone calls, it comes with an external microphone, and I did a pretty good job mounting it. A couple other people, I've seen them mounted right here on the A-pillar or up here in the center. I really didn't want to look at it because it's just distracting to me. So what I did is, see that little vent right there? Maybe you can see it, but I mounted it behind that little vent. And what that vent is it's part of the automatic temperature control system. There's a sensor in there that reads, ambient temperature, vent temperature, and then when you turn on the automatic air conditioning, it'll take care of all that. I really don't use it. I like the manual controls, selecting defrost or air conditioning, and adjust my fan speed as desired. So I really don't use the automatic feature of this. So it was a no-brainer to put my microphone in there because I didn't have to run it up the A-pillar. And the call quality is excellent. I've never had somebody say, huh? Or what? All you got to do is have the windows up and speak normal, and it picks up your voice very well. This does have a backup camera input. Really wasn't keen on that, but I went ahead and bought one anyways because it felt like I was leaving money on the table, not using it. I found one on Amazon. It was $12 or $13, and just put it on there just because. Another good thing about this is that, of course, it has that 60-day return policy from Crutchfield, and I really wasn't sure if this was going to work out, so I wanted to get it in here and try it out, and thankfully it did. Everything worked out, so I've kept it. Okay, so now let's get on to the lows. The lows, it has one glaring low that was almost a deal breaker for me, and it has to do with the preamp outputs. It has a pair of preamp outputs for the front, a pair of preamp outputs for the rear, but it only has one subwoofer preamp output. Now what that means is the very first amplifier that I got to hook up to this, it was a 2-channel amplifier, but I'm only running one subwoofer, so I put it in bridged mode to increase the output of the amplifier to get all the watts out of it. And when I did that, it didn't sound very good. It didn't sound very well at all. So I thought the amplifier was bad. So I took the amplifier and I put it in my Crown Vic, which has another stereo in it, and it happens to have dual pre-outs for subwoofer, left and right, or not left and right, but it has two preamp outputs for subwoofer. And so I hooked that up to the amp, and it sounded fantastic. It was so loud it was shaking everything, and I couldn't figure it out. And finally what I figured it out is because the stereo only has one pre-output for the subwoofer, on a 2-channel amp, you're only getting half the signal. If you're only getting half the signal, it can only amplify half that signal. So I was only getting half of the overall output out of that amp. So the first thing I did is I tried getting a Y splitter to split the signal out of this into 2 channels and then run it to the amp. And it worked, but it still didn't sound as good as when I hooked it up in my Crown Vic with dual preamp outputs. So I had to return that amp and get a different amp. And what I found is I bought a monoblock 1-channel amp. And on the amp, it even has it accepts dual pre-outs. But because it's a 1-channel amp, you only need one of the channels. And so I tried it with 1 channel going in there, and it sounded great. So I just hooked up, so I wanted to see if there was a difference. I hooked up the Y splitter. I hooked up the Y splitter to this, so there was two outputs, but of course it's splitting the signal in half, and I ran it to this 1-channel amp, and it sounded even better. So that's what I did, is I ran the Y cable on the subwoofer preamp output of the head unit to the amplifier in the back, and it sounds fantastic. It sounds great. So if I hadn't have figured that out, I would have returned this head unit and got a head unit with dual subwoofer pre-outs. That's kind of a little thing, because most of the people who buy these head units, they're not hooking up a separate amplifier for a subwoofer. They're just using it just for the phone, so they can hook up their phone, make phone calls, and play music. That's pretty much it for lows. Would I recommend this product? Yeah, I'd recommend this product. I bought this thing for $280, and I went on Crutchfield and it's still available, but now it's on sale for $250. So at $250, I think it's a fantastic buy, but I can only assume that it's lower in price because they're about to come out with the next year's model, and it'll probably be better and have more refinement, and maybe it might even have dual subwoofer preamp output. Who knows? But it's not going to be $250. It's probably going to be right back up to $300 or $280. Okay, so let me give you a little demonstration of how this thing works. Let's turn it on here. I'm going to take the camera off, so the audio is probably going to suffer because the microphone's not next to my mouth. Sorry about that. So got in here. Okay, so the stereo's on, and where this thing really shines, what I want to show you is the crossover settings. So you get in here, you can get into your sound. It's got an extra bass setting. It's got a crossover and a DSO. It's like a dynamic sound organization or something. I don't know what it means. But the crossover, see right here, it's got a high pass filter and a low pass filter. And right now I've got the high pass filter set at 120 degrees Hertz. And what that means is it means no bass is going to my door speakers or the speakers in my parcel shelf. And you really need that, because if you don't, you're going to be running bass to those little Ford factory speakers, and it'll blow them up in no time with the powerful 20-watt RMS amplifier built into this head unit. The low pass filter, I've got it set to off because I use the crossover and low pass filter on the amplifier. And the second thing on here that's really nice is it's got this DSO, dynamic stage, or dynamic sound stage something. And what this means is when you're streaming music, you know, if you're on radio.com or iHeart or Pandora or Spotify, you know, you'll know that every single song sounds different. You know, some songs sound really good, you know, good volume quality, and then some will be very, very low, and you can't really, you got to crank up the volume. So with this, you can turn it on low for a song that sounds really good, and then if a song is quiet, you can turn it on high, and it'll compensate for that. So that's really nice. And of course, it's got a 10-band EQ on here, but I can't turn it on until I fire up the phone. So I'll fire up the phone here. And I'll turn on iHeartRadio. Hopefully it won't play a commercial. Yeah, I think it's going to play. Yeah, it's going to play a commercial. All right, let's go to radio.com. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. They're playing the Ramones. So once that gets playing, you can plug in your lightning cable, and it's going to go CarPlay. You can turn that back on, and the nice thing, it'll screen mirror whatever's on there. It'll show up on there. So K-Rock of the 80s, the Ramones. What is it? Beat on the Brat. Okay, so that's how that works. And I'll show you maps on here. So this is nice. On the phone, it'll show you your turn-by-turn directions, and on the screen here, it'll give you an overview if you want, or your regular directions. And another thing that's nice, it's got a built-in dimmer. So right now it's in daytime mode, and when you turn your headlights on, it'll automatically go to nighttime mode. That's pretty nice. See, that's nighttime, and you turn it off, it'll go to daytime. So that's kind of neat. Okay, that's pretty much it. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.